without, keep it from being developed. How are you working with these organizations?
A lot of the open space preservation organizations were involved with us when we created the Priority Conservation Area Program, and we expect to continue to work with them in the future in terms of identifying their priorities for the areas that we would want to target resources. We're one of the implementation strategies that we're considering as part of the plan is trying to really put more emphasis on the priority conservation areas and open space preservation. And so I think there's going to be additional staff work on that as after plan adoption as we move forward. And I think that would certainly include all of the open space kind of protection agencies throughout the region.
Have you identified any funds to buy up that open land?
We have an agreement with the Strategic Growth Council that has some funding available for that, but we need to, it's another area that we need to identify additional funds.
So it's not part of the $589 billion that's already been allocated?
The 289, part of it is directed to the Priority Conservation Area Program, but I'm sorry, I don't remember the dollar figure off the top of my head. So some of it has gone toward that, but it's not enough to meet the need, I would say. So we have a need for more.
Any other council members? Here? No?
No, thank you.
So I just wanted to, where is the bike and pedestrian paths integrated in this? It seems to me part of the AB 375 was the reduction of greenhouse gases. I mean, that's really what the law said. I haven't read it word for word, but it seems like some of the One Bay Area Plan assumptions and projections are pretty far-reaching in interpretation of that Senate Bill 375, where it seems to me that the majority, the major reason it was written was to reduce greenhouse gases.
Right.
So to reduce greenhouse gases is to create more bike and pedestrian friendly routes and safe. I mean, I'm not saying just a stripe along the side of El Camino Real for a bike lane, but truly safe and scenic, lovely paths. So does this take into consideration of that? Because I see more money being taken away from our bike and ped programs and put into this.
Yeah, so one of the programs that I kind of listed quickly there was what we call the One Bay Area Grant Program. Mm-hmm. And what it did was take a variety of funding that in the past has been directed to certain programs like Bike and Ped and combine it into a sort of a block grant, I think was the idea, so that local jurisdictions and the county congestion management agencies like CCAG can identify the priorities. And so it's certainly still in there. There is, I think, money dedicated to Bike and Ped, and it's a major consideration, as you noted. A lot of it is, there's a focus on transit, but also walking and biking. And even when you consider transit, people can walk and bike there. I mean, it's a major, it's a very important method for people to get around. So it definitely is in there.
All right, thank you. So I'd like to open it up to the public for any public comments on this One Bay Area Plan. Yes, sir. Come to the podium.
If I remember correctly, you allocated 500 jobs over the 30 years between 210 and 240 to Atherton. Since we have no retail, commercial, or industrial jobs in this town, where are we supposed to get the 500 jobs?
I think the expectation is that over time, land uses might change, particularly given the resource of El Camino Real as a major transportation corridor and transit corridor, that things might change over time.
Yeah.
Any comment from the council on changing the zoning laws of Atherton?
Not so far as I know. And one of the things that I'm very concerned about is that we don't want ADAG or the One Bay Area Plan to force us to change our general plan in order to create those 500 jobs, or to create the high density, or to create the transit-oriented development districts, because Atherton is a single-family residential community, period, the end. And so So, and so you did say that it does not take away any local control.
Right.
But then the next sentence is that, well, things change, and so we're allocating 500 jobs over 30 years.
I'm not saying that we would change things, that just
We would,
the needs of the community or
Yeah.
the desires of the community might change. I'm not saying it will, or that we will force you to, or anything like that.
all right,
It's just a possibility.
okay. So, city manager?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. You also mentioned that ECR is a priority development area. What are some of the realistic opportunities we might have? Because we're not going to change, as the council mentioned, the residential makeup of the community, but the two bordering communities on either side of us are going to likely make changes within their areas, and ECR is going to be impacted by that. Will there be grant opportunities for us, even though we're not PDA?
My understanding, again, so a lot of the funding has been kind of handed over to this county congestion management agency. So a lot of the decisions about where that money might go and whether it might be available to Atherton are at the local level, so decisions made by CCAG. As I understand it, it could very well be that if there was an important connection between two PDAs, for example, between, along El Camino in Atherton, that might qualify. But I don't know enough about the decision making and the standards and the criteria that CCAG has set to say definitively that's true. But I think there would be some opportunities for that.
Okay. I would like to offer any other member of the public to have an opportunity to speak if they want to at this time. Otherwise, I'll close the public comment period. And I just ask one more question. Where do we go from here? What are the next steps? I mean, it looks like the draft has been out. How many more public hearings are we going to have an opportunity to attend? How do we get our residents aware of what's going on? And have we made any comments to the EIR? Not that I know of, right? That I know you've
No.
been our EIR representative, but wondering if there was any communication from the meetings that you've attended. Okay, all right. Thank you very much.
Sure. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So July 18th, huh?
So yeah, the opportunities for anyone to weigh in are tomorrow evening at the ABAG Executive Board, and then the Administrative Committee of ABAG and MTC Planning Committee meetings on July 12th, which is a Friday, and then the Joint ABAG Executive Board and MTC Commission, which is a Thursday evening meeting, July 18th. So those are the three major meetings where anyone is welcome to come and provide comments.
So maybe, City Manager, you could put those dates in your weekly wrap-up so that the residents can have that information in the website. Thank
And
you.
I can send the slides to staff just so you have this information available as well.
Very nice. Okay, great. Thank you very much. All right. Okay. So next on our agenda is true public comments for items that are not on the agenda tonight. And however, if you have a time constraint and you want to speak on an item that's later on in the agenda, you would use your 3 minutes at this time. And while it's nice to know who's speaking for the record, it's not mandatory that you give your address. So I know that one member of our public has asked to have extra time. So Mr. Brindley, you're on. Going to give us a report on the high-speed rail litigation battle.
Right, William Grindley, 151 Laurel Street, one telephone. Let me give you 4.5 points from the last briefing I gave you. May 31st, I was at a hearing in Sacramento on the lawsuit, which is officially called Tos Fukuda in the County of Kings versus the California High-Speed Rail Authority, otherwise known as the Proposition 1A lawsuit. It had 2 parts, which I've explained before and I won't attempt to go into. Only the first part, called the writ mandamus, you're all familiar with that part, was argued on May 31st. Our side, represented by well-known attorney Stuart Flashman, who has helped both Atherton and Menlo Park in the past, handled himself superbly. The 2 points he wished to make was, first, the authority had no certification of their funding plan other than the $3 billion from the state and the $3 billion match from the feds. And that was a requirement of the law as also passed by Proposition 1A of 2008. Second citation he made was that as of the time of the approval or certification of the funding plan by the Board of Directors in November 2001, the authority had not certified to the program level environmental impact report. The judge was Michael Kinney, who Stuart Flashman has argued 2 cases successfully in front of him. The judge then gave the Attorney General's representative, Deputy Attorney General, the chance to respond and rebuttal, to which, quite frankly, she fumbled. She tried to argue first that there were programs which were not certified but likely to happen from the federal government. And as she read those from prior authority plans, many of us in the audience began to giggle because some of those programs were dead on arrival in 2009 and 10 at the U.S. Congress. Very poorly prepared. Secondly, she argued that they did have the first 24 miles of the, am I dancing? Okay. First 24 miles of the 300 plus miles of the initial operating segment certified, and that they promised that they will have the remaining 100 miles certified by the time they begin construction, to which Judge Kenny's response was, Ms. Inna, let me get this right. You have about not even 10% of it already certified, but the legislation was written in the past tense that you had certified it before you began construction, and you're promising us the 100 miles in the future tense. Can you explain that for me? Which of course could not. She then returned to an argument several times making the same basic point, that the measure was put on the ballot solely to inform the voters of what the legislature intended to do. Oh yes. And secondly, that the juridical system of California really had no authority in this case, because it was a case whereby the legislature had passed a law and that the authority had responded to the legislature's questions. Sorry, Mark is not here, I'd like to stab him. Many times and clarified that, and therefore the justice sitting in front of her really had no authority to rule on this. I could see Justice Kenny holding his breath throughout that one. Our attorney, again, Stuart Flashman, had done a wonderful, not just yeoman's job, but a brilliant job at prefacing his entire remarks by referring to 3 cases where not only did the justice system of California have the authority, but they had authority in not just similar cases, but in cases that were absolutely parallel to the one he was hearing that day. And it was brilliant of him to do that because, as we know, well, we assume, sorry, the state will go to the appellate court, the Court of Appeals, because they have all your money to be, all of our money to be able to sue us, and we have only our pennies to try to fight them back. The nature of human energy is that you read the first things on the first page. So Stu had started with that entire overview and preface to his argument, showing the judge, Judge Kenny, that he had the authority. And I suspect that any appellate judge is not going to sit there and say, well, gosh, we're just here to represent what the legislature wants to do. So all in all, it was a very good day. Those of us who were sitting behind the Attorney General with 4 live television cameras pointed at us had a hard time not going, yes. So it was a good day. Any questions on that? You may have heard about the Surface Transportation Board, the federal board that inherited the authority of the Interstate Commerce Commission. I don't know when it did it, but it flipped sometime. They ruled that the authority had the right and were exempted from their authority for their first 65 miles. Several of the legal minds are pro bono legal minds, including Jim in the back, went through that ruling and said, yeah, that's probably right, but they have no authority to go forward any time after there's 65 miles of construction. Those of us who have been working on the finance of this thing for the last 3.5 years know that they may have enough money to go 65 miles. Our guess is they don't have enough money to go 65 miles with rail sitting on it, because they have 5 sections. Oh, they've already admitted, for those of you who don't understand this, they admit that they don't have enough money even in 65 miles to put electric power that drives high-speed trains or railroad cars and locomotives on it. But this construction is broken down into 5 parts. Part 1 through 4 is to build, starting in Madera towards Bakersfield, which is 130-something miles, excuse me. And CP5, construction project 5, is put the rails on it. Well, according to our calculations, making certain assumptions, they're going to build this, and using their data, it's going to cost anywhere from 85 to 95 million a mile. And therefore, they may get themselves 65 miles out of this. But CP5, construction project 5, to put the rails on top of the mound, probably won't come along because of a whole bunch of things.
So William,
Yes.
do you feel encouraged?
I'm very encouraged. I don't want to jump up and down. I haven't bought the domain Shandong yet, but I'm getting there. Okay.
Thank
All right,
you.
and we're encouraged. Sorry. Yesterday there was a complaint, an official complaint, and that's the word you use for lawsuit, filing a lawsuit, made by the Kings County Water District, which lays out in very excruciating detail the bid rigging process that the authority went through to select Tudor Perini. So now it's out in the open. It is a public document. There will be a suit. That suit will be heard in its first hearing on September the 27th. So it's not just a news item anymore. It's not just a complaint to the state auditor anymore. It is in the public record. A footnote to all of that. I have this habit of trying to follow up on things. I was reading the agreement between the Federal Railroad Administration and the California High-Speed Rail the other day, the 2010, the original one, and the one in 2012, whereby, as Jerry knows, they altered the way that the monies get spent. And what did I find? That in the 289 million she's thinking of, our dear federal government slipped in another $239 million into the equation for the high-speed rail. That's how highly they regard your money in Washington and the administration. Above that, however, there is an issue, and this may be a second public comment by a public commentor. Is anybody aware of SB 71 or SB 76?
Yes.
You are? Oh, yeah, that's very scary. Essentially, it is going to make it extremely difficult for any public person or a organization to have access to public records.
It's a public record.
Yeah. The only weapon we've had in this entire fight is showing the deception, fraud, and flat-out cheating that the authority has done in switching names, switching definitions, switching amounts of money in the public record. If that goes through, it's a very slippery slope. Thank you very much.
Thank you, William. Thank you so much. Yeah.
William,
Yes.
I'd just like to thank you again for all the time and effort you put into this. I mean, not just time, but money and everything else. You're just doing a marvelous job. Thank God we have you. And
Thanks, Jim.
I really want to thank you.
The reward is working with guys like that, okay? And guys like that in the back too. You know, just on a personal note, I've lost a lot of friends because of the position I've taken on this. But I've gained a lot more, right? And I don't regret the 3.5 years, the 6 trips to Washington, the 52 trips to Sacramento, the 700 pages of financial analysis, the 2,000 footnotes, and the 30 grand out of pocket at this point.
William, thank you so much. more public comment on items that are not on the agenda.
So, give him the good news. He's got good
Oh,
news.
wait, oh.
Just
what?
say it.
Well, the Democrats withdrew that bill this afternoon.
Oh, the 71 and 70?
Yeah.
Thank
Nice.
you. All right. They also
Hi,
introduced-
John Ruggiero,
they also
Stockbridge
introduced-
Avenue. The town manager and Mr. Tyler, our public works superintendent, and I presume Mike also must know about this horrible situation we've had on Stockbridge regarding the pavements that we've been dealing with. For years.
Excuse me. Just one second. I'm gonna leave this on because you're highly charged. He's creating static. Okay. There's a lot of this. But,
We're having
okay.
trouble with
How's that?
the pavements. We've had small potholes which have been marked for months with white chalk, white paint, they mark them, 30 feet by 10 feet by this. So this goes on, and you say, well, someday they're gonna do something. Finally, they filled them with a little asphalt, that was fine. About a month ago, we get a notice they're going to slurry, as they say, right? They call it
The
slurry.
Kingsfield slurry.
Slurry the street.
Cape Seal.
So on the night, and we get a notice that from the 14th to the 15th, this was gonna occur, of June. On the 9th, they're out with a grinder grinding the middle line now. Dust all over, that's all right, we weren't notified of that. The 14th and 15th come, no, they're not coming. They did come actually one day, and they lay this chip, they call it, but it's gravel, obviously gravel, I mean, thick gravel. And it throws up dust all over the place. At my house is way back, it doesn't bother me. But I saw people, a lot of the maids, and so walking through this dust, it was like fog. In fact, I went out there and breathed a little bit and got a little irritated. So this laid for a day, and then they keep bringing these wheels that are running it around on the 14th. So we figured on the 15th, now that's 5 or 6 days, it'll be taken care of. No, it stopped. Automobiles are up and down, dust, for days, as you know. Now we get a notice it's gonna be the 18th and the 19th. Today is gonna finalize it. So all this time you're hiding your cars. You can't, you're putting them in neighbors around the corner, so on and so forth. And the 18th, yesterday, they didn't show up. The 19th today, at 1 in the afternoon, I see putting barricades up. I talked to Mr. Tyler, one of our officers in the government. He said, oh, they'll be out of there at 5 o'clock. Are you sure? Because I'm going to the council meeting. Oh, yeah, they'll be out of there. Will it be dry? It'll be dry. If I get a call at home at 5:30 from him, no, they're coming back next Tuesday, which goes into the 26th, which is about 14 days. Now, right now, if you go up our street, on the south side lane, it's black, the slurry. On the northbound lane, it's still the gravel. And God knows how long it's gonna be. And I went out to talk to one of the parent supervisors about a week ago, very snotty, who used a word to me. And he wouldn't give me his name or anything. He got in his truck and drove away, and his truck was Nevada license plates. And I reported his description, so anyway.
Thank you. I think we get the picture that you
Okay.
had an unpleasant
George knows
situation.
all about it. and
Thank
I'm
you.
sure Mike
Thank
does.
you for making the public comment. Do you want to, Helen, did you want to say something?
No, I'm finding this very interesting, but unfortunately, I have a visual problem and I have to leave to
Okay.
do something about it.
So, can we,
I'm sure
help
I can
Helen
manage my way
get
out. I'd like to thank you all for the honor.
Sure.
And I'm sorry to have to leave before you. finish.
understand? Maybe city manager can kind of help guide you through that podium thing there. Okay, I know, because you don't want to be stuck in the front row all night here, because it is going for a
Thank you
while.
all.
Thank you, William. And you got a hug from Shirley, okay?
Yes, well, that was
See you later.
for long.
Okay, so I do think that we're still in our public comment section of our agenda, and we have another resident who'd like to make a public comment.
I can take your key and do it.
I wish you the best.
There you go, okay, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
I can
Jim Jans, 95 Wilburn Avenue. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I apologize for missing item number 3, the proclamations and the presentation to Mr. Carlson for his last city council meeting. But I wanted to, I was stuck in traffic, apologize for that. But I did have some comments, and I would like to put them into the record. Jerry, it was a privilege and a pleasure to serve with you on the city council and the several committees that we worked on together, in particular the rail committee. I want you to know that I appreciated very much your style, your positive attitude, the novel solutions that you brought to city government, particularly using your corporate background to do some out-of-the-box thinking, and your problem-solving ability. You were outside of the town, you were a great representative for the town to other organizations in the county, on the peninsula, and throughout the state. So I'm just going to be very brief. I want you to know that I really appreciated it all. You set the gold standard for public service. It was great working with you. I want to thank you for your years of service. No one does it better than you did. God bless you.
Thank you, Jim.
Okay, so we're still in public comment, okay, on items that are not on the agenda.
Carol Flaherty, Camino por los Árboles, love your curtains. I read the Almanac this week about the issue over charging for political fundraising, the cost that the town has to incur in political fundraising. As a house that has been around the corner from 2 of these, I understand the attraction of coming to Atherton, but I also understand there is a cost, and irrespective of the party, I think that is a highly appropriate action, and I hope you all give it to them and recoup every single penny. I think it's gotten a bit out of control. TV cameras were even on our driveway for one fundraiser 2 years ago. And so I applaud you for going back and recouping that. It is not our responsibility to have to pay for fundraising going on for either party in this town. And Jerry, I didn't know tonight was your last meeting, and I too think you have been the best. You have sent me emails over the years. You have listened to me. You have engaged in constructive dialogue as I was ranting and raging over certain things. You have been one class act. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so if there are no more members of the public who'd like to speak at this time, I will close the public comment and go on to item number 5, report out of closed session. We'll let our city manager do that.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the City Council. You had a closed session this evening for an update for the council on the ongoing negotiations with the Atherton Police Officers Association. It was just a report to the council, no action taken.
Okay, thank you very much, City Manager. So going on to item number 6, City Manager's report.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council. You have the City Manager's report for this evening. You have a large amount of information from the department heads and a little bit of information from me as I was going on vacation as I was writing this report. But I'm happy to answer any questions the council may have. The staff is here as well. 2 items I would like to point out. It might be appropriate at some point for the council to discuss Atherton's 90th birthday. And then the Atherton Arts Foundation budget request was submitted for fiscal year 13-14 in the amount of $12,415, and that will be presented to the council for action at the July meeting.
Okay. Do any members of the council have any comments on the city manager's report? Councilman Carlson?
I'm just going to encourage you to keep following up on the library KPA donor fund issue and analyzing the best way to provide library services in the future to the town. And secondly, I received from CCAG and I forwarded to you the fact that the Accounting Standards Board and Moody's looking at these long-term liabilities, and that certainly will have some impact on the long-term financial plan analysis that the town needs to continue to undertake.
So I just have a couple of little comments. One was to note that September 23rd, it's down there. 1923 was Atherton's formation. This September 23rd, 2013 will be its 90th birthday. At this time, there are no formal plans to have a celebration. There's nothing in the budget to have a celebration, so if any residents are interested in holding some kind of an event, I think the last time we had any kind of celebration for the birthday was the 75th. That would have been 1998, and so 90th is pretty significant. 100th will be even more. So, reviewing the report on the police department, reading this report is pretty impressive about everything that our police department has been doing this past month. I got the feeling that we are no longer in the quiet little town of Mayberry. Our police officers are dealing with very real issues on a daily basis over and over again, and they're doing it with excellence and also handling the needs and demands of our residents who expect the quality of police protection and police services. So I wanted to point that out and thank the chief very much for that. That's on page 3 of the city manager's report, if anyone wants to read it. So does any member of the public have any comment regarding the city manager's report if you've read it? If not, I'll go on to the community organizational roundtable. There's no report on that. And then the consent calendar, items 8 through 14. Typically, the items on the consent calendar are routine in nature and generally considered in one motion and adopted by a single vote by the city council. However, any member of the public or council may wish to pull a consent item for either minor comments or further discussion. And I just want to remind council members that it's helpful if council members take time prior to the meeting tonight to ask staff any questions that they may have on any of the consent items. I understand staff has pulled item number 13 from the consent calendar.
It's been pulled entirely from the agenda.
Okay, it's been pulled entirely from the agenda. It will not be brought forward. Do any members of the council wish to pull any items from the consent calendar?
Item number 10.
Number 10. Anyone else? I'd like to pull number 12 for, it could be just a quick comment, a clarification. And item number 8 is the minutes. I had made some corrections, grammatical corrections, and a couple of additions that I sent to the city clerk's attention that she indicated she would change. Just typos, okay. So she said that that was fine. Any members of the public? We already did that. So may I have,
Mayor.
yes.
Just a technicality. In
Yes.
the record, you mentioned 8 through 14 instead of 18. You meant 18, I
Oh,
think.
you're right. Thank you very much. 8 through 18. Yes, I did. My error. Thank you, Greg, very much. So can I get I'll just go ahead and ask my question about item number 12, which has to do with the tree service contract, because it did not indicate that that there would be an increase in the number of hours for the increase in the budget number. It went up from 60,000 a year to 75,000 a year, but it didn't indicate that the number of hours would be increased accordingly at the same hourly rate as the contract previously. Is that, am I misunderstanding that?
Well, not misunderstanding. The budget last year was 60,000, the budget this year is 75,000, and it's based on the expectation of the amount of work that might be required throughout the year. That's just what's changed. The actual cost of the service has not changed, and the hours needed. We would plan for contingencies, emergencies, additional upkeep, those sorts of things.
Okay, well, last year, it was $60,000 for 540 hours.
Correct.
I just want to make sure that if there's $75,000.
We'll get more hours.
We get more hours.
I didn't get that from reading that. The way I read it, the same as the mayor, is that they bid a certain number of hours to take care of the business that you said, and they said 540.
That was previously.
But they said when they opened up, in the staff report, they indicated that here was this is what they knew, the new bid
That was for,
was.
no, that was for 12-13. That was for fiscal year 12-13 was the 5 bids were as
Those were the
follows.
original bids, this
That
is
was
just
the
an
original
extension.
bid.
Oh, okay, all
So
right.
that's why I was trying to clarify
Okay.
that.
All right.
And you notice the contract extension doesn't change the money, because the money is bid separately, I mean, it's budgeted separately. If the council in the budget process made it $200,000, it wouldn't change the contract
Okay.
because it's on an hourly basis as needed.
Okay, so all we're approving here is the renewal of their contract for 1 year, and we have budgeted additional money because clearly I think we do need additional work for tree work.
Correct.
Okay, given that, Councilmember Dobby has pulled number 10, can I get a motion to approve items 8, 9, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, and 18? Seconded, moved by Councilmember Whitmer and seconded by Councilmember Weiss. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That consent item has been approved, and we will take up item number 10 at the end of the meeting. So we'll go on to item number 19, public hearings, which is the approval of the fiscal year 2013-2014 operating and capital improvement budget. Before I say anything, I just want to commend our finance director, Robert Barron, III, and our city manager, and all of our department heads for presenting a very well-organized, detailed, and educational budget document binder. In my opinion, this is by far and away the best budget presentation that Atherton has ever received. Thank you all for your excellent work. I'll open it up to city manager to make a presentation, and then finance director.
Yeah, and staff chair to answer any questions as well. Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council, you stole thunder. Madam
I
Mayor.
did, I stole your thunder.